This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by S-Jam's very own Adam Morallee here today over Zoom. Adam, appreciate your time as always. And how is everything, my friend? You all good?
Yeah, all good, Josh. All good, thank you.
Very, very good to hear. We'll dive straight into things. I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but it is only right that we cover at least a couple of the fighters within the ever-growing S-Jam stable. And I think it's important to start with Joe Joyce after a tough fight last time out against Eric Chisora. A lot of people weren't sure what we were going to see from Joe next, whether we were going to see Joe back in the ring. But
Mm,
March the 1st, we do see him back out in Bournemouth. I think looking on BoxRec, it says that it's scheduled for an eight-rounder.
yeah.
What is the plan with Joe Joyce this year?
So the plan is to get Joe back in big fights, right? But we thought as a team, Steve Broughton, Cam Goff, and Juan and me, we looked at it as a team, and we thought the best thing for Joe is to have a warm-up fight on March the 1st. Um, get him ready for a big year, and then yeah, we're looking to go again pretty soon thereafter in a big fight, actually.
So are we going to be, is it targeting just straight back towards obviously looking at Riyadh season? We've seen obviously all the big fights coming up. We saw a big press conference yesterday.
Yeah.
Is that the type of table that you want to get Joe
No,
Joyce?
I think Joe's going to have this fight. With the greatest respect to this opponent, it's an opponent he should be beating. And then straight into a big fight within a matter of weeks, I'd say. Not a Riyadh season fight. A big show against a well-known opponent. And then I think that's the gateway for Joe to win that fight, to win this warm-up, win that fight. And then that's the gateway to get back in with the big heavyweights in Riyadh season.
Was there any conversation, obviously, in the aftermath of the Chisora fight? Was there any conversation about should we maybe call it a day here? He's had a great career, especially
Absolutely.
amateur wise.
Absolutely. I mean, Joe's had a fantastic career. He's earned a lot of money. And you have to have that conversation with people. I mean, I'd like to put one thing straight, actually. A lot of people are out there saying, Joe's punchy and he's been through too much, etc. That's the top of my. Whenever we look after any boxer, the number one concern is health. I think those who know Joe Joyce will know what he's like as a person, and we joke about it. But Joe is highly intelligent, but just on occasion, sometimes he'll get asked a question, he'll be a bit slow to answer. He's been like that from the start, and then people were like clipping that clip at Joshua Dubois where he did about 50 interviews, and then the last one, I mean, he laughed about it himself and made a video about it. But Joe's not punchy. Joe's in a great place. He's training harder than ever. He's going to be back.
Very, very good to hear. We're excited to see the return of the Juggernaut in 2025. Another fighter that I feel it's important to give a bit of limelight to, Lerone Richards, again, last year. I've been seeing all the clips on S-Jam talking about bringing these guys back. What is the plan with Lerone Richards for 2025? I know he was meant to be back out in December, but
Yeah.
that fell through. So how do you navigate Lerone Richards' career throughout 2025?
Yeah, look, Lerone is back with Dave Caldwell, who I think, I love Grant Smith. I think Grant's one of the best coaches out there. But I think Lerone and Dave have a great bond. And I think Dave's a great coach for Lerone, and his career best performance against Carlos Gongora and other performances that Lerone had were under Dave Caldwell. So Lerone's going to come back at 175. I think, a lot's been spoken about the weight of 168, but I think it's the right weight for 175. Talking to Nissa, Lerone's promoter, about the right place back for him. But for me, Lerone doesn't need any warm ups at 175. For me, Lerone can go straight in a big fight at 175 against someone like, for example, like a Willie Hutchison. He could have that fight straight away, like a Lyndon Arthur. I mean, he's very, very good friends with Liam Cameron, actually. Him and Liam are like best mates. So I'm not sure that fight had ever happened, but there's a great domestic scene at 175, and I think Lerone should just be thrown straight back into it.
Obviously, this conversation about whether Lerone should go back to 168 or 175 has been spoke about for a while now, I believe. When did you come to that conclusion that 175 was the better place to be for him?
I think um, it's very easy to say, "Oh, I lost this fight, I lost that fight because I couldn't make weight." All boxers have got to make weight. It's tough for all boxers. So it's not just the fact that Lerone suffered his first loss. It's about how Lerone is in the lead up to those things. And he's such a great athlete. He lives the life almost, almost like nobody else. He really lives the life, Lerone Richards. And I just think it was taken with his S&C coaches, with his coach. We looked at his best performances. He is that little bit older now. We just think it's the healthiest and best weight for him.
Fair enough. And then Junaid Boston obviously hits 2025 running at the end of this month. English title fight. It's a long overdue title shot. It's been spoken about for a while again. And especially after the 2024 that he had, we saw that he was frustrated with the 2024 that he had and wanted to be more active. As well as picking up titles this year, are we going to see a lot more activity from Junaid Boston?
Yeah, look, I mean, Junaid wanted to be more active last year. I think he had a great 2024. I think his performances were great. He gets better all the time. I think he is one of the country's best prospects. And yeah, we want him more active. I think Matchroom want him more active. I mean, he's straight out first month of the year, right? For that English title, and then targeting a fight for the British at the end of the year. We've got a very clear strategy with with Junaid this year, and that is British champion by the end of the year.
And then Tommy Fletcher, I've spoke to Mark Tibbs a couple of times since his first loss. When can we see Tommy Fletcher back in the ring?
Yeah, look, it's a big kind of moment, I think, for any young boxer when they lose their first fight in the pro game. Is it that they reached a level that wasn't right for them and they're not at that level? Is it that they had a bad day at the office? I think for Tommy, he had a bad day at the office, but it's a big amount of learning that we can get from that fight. And we're putting those learnings into practice now. So, yeah, I mean, Tommy's getting offers all the time. So I'm looking to get Tommy out in the first quarter for sure.
Fair enough. And then just moving away from here and talking about some of the wider topics in the boxing world right now. We've had some very big news yesterday. I'd say two big bits of news, but the biggest one that stood out the most. Tyson Fury has broke his silence on the Alexander Usyk defeat and announced his retirement. It comes as a shock to many people. A lot of people were kind of surprised and taken back to see it. What do you make of Tyson Fury's retirement, first of all?
I think listen, if he is actually retired, I think what a career he's had, what an impact he's had on the sport, what a personality. Incredible. He's made enough money for 10 lifetimes. And you wonder, and I understand the retirement. It's very different to Joe. Joe's not had the world titles that he's had. Joe's not had the glory that he's had. Joe's still striving. Tyson's achieved it. Okay, he didn't get undisputed, and I think that will be very, very difficult to achieve now because I think the belts will fragment, etc. But if he has retired, incredible. What a career for the guy. What a character. What a part of the sport. Has he retired though? I mean, I think it's a very legitimate question to ask when he's retired. I don't know. I don't know the stats. 3 times before and come back each time. I guess at some point he will retire, but personally, when a retirement announcement comes at a time when another party's negotiating with you, it's hard for it not to look like a negotiating move. It's hard. I understand his management didn't know he was going to do it. He just did it. He's notoriously unpredictable. Do I think he's actually permanently retired? I doubt it.
So you believe that we will still see Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury this year?
No, I'm not saying we'll see AJ Tyson Fury, but I doubt he's permanently retired. I think we could see it. Maybe he'll go off for a year. Maybe he'll come back in. I think the last time he retired, he was off. I don't know. You can check the facts. Maybe for 6 months. Like he may want a serious period of time out and then come back. So I'm not just saying it's purely a negotiating move for AJ, but it's interesting it's come at that time. Maybe that negotiation made him think in the head, oh, F this, I can't be bothered with this anymore. I'm doing it. I'm just saying that I I expect him to be back at some point in the future.
Do you feel with this retirement though, there is probably a bit more of an element where it could be a legit one, especially off the back of the two Usyk defeats?
Yeah, very much so, because all he really had left to do was undisputed, right? That's the only box he really had left to tick as a world champion, as an enormous personality. And I think the way the governing bodies are working, etc., I don't think that'll ever come back to him again. So it would make sense, yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that's playing on his mind. And he may well be retired, who knows? But because he said, I'm retired before and he's come back, it makes people like me and others think he probably will come back. What do I think on balance? Yeah, I think he probably will. But if he doesn't, he doesn't.
So while you don't believe that we might not see Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury this year, do you believe that the next fight for Tyson Fury should be Anthony Joshua?
Yeah, look, all things being equal, I think it's a great fight for British boxing, AJ Tyson Fury. Two guys who have been mammoths of the sport, by far the two most well-known boxers in the UK, meeting at Wembley. I think, obviously, from a boxing fan's perspective, some of the allure has been removed from the fight. They both lost to Usyk. Um, so it's not the two best. It's not one and two in the world going against each other. But it's a great battle of Britain. You'd say there's probably other heavyweights in Britain now that would say they're above AJ and Tyson, but they should probably get on with it. I think the fight loses allure as each month goes past. So I think in a year's time, it becomes more of a these guys are past their prime fight. I think right now you can persuade everyone they're still towards the end of their prime. So this summer it will sell out Wembley Stadium, no problem, massive fight. Um, Great for the sport. I'd love it to happen.
Do you think, regardless of when the fight happens, let's say, for example, when you look at Amir Khan versus Kell Brook and how
Yeah.
far past their best they were, do you believe that with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, it will always sell out Wembley Stadium just due to that name and reputation that they bring to the table?
Probably, yeah. It probably will. I mean, for boxing fans, it would be sad if that happened the later on it goes. But yeah, I think it would always sell it out. It's just going to be what's the quality of the fight going to be like. But yeah, then no, I mean, look, you get and greatest respect to Misfits and the guys behind that, Wasserman and Mams Tate. Like Misfits fights sell out because it's two personalities. People aren't going necessarily for the boxing craft, are they? So if that can sell out, there's no one even touching the recognition of AJ and Fury.
Absolutely. Just moving away from that, we also had news yesterday that Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. has reportedly been signed for April 26th, reportedly at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
After God knows how long of negotiating now, where even I've voiced my opinion myself and said listening to this negotiating is getting boring. We finally hit an agreement, or supposedly hit an agreement, and we will finally see them in the ring. Is that good news for British boxing?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great fight. I think it's a great fight. I think as the sport moves almost entirely onto DAZN, the danger with that is it becomes more marginalised, right? And only people with the DAZN app will watch boxing. Queensbury are going there, Top Rank are going there, it appears. Matchroom already there. Who knows what will happen with Boxer? And so anything that elevates the sport, anything that puts it into the headlines, gets it on Sky Sports News, for example, I am in favour of. And Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. does that. I think it's great for the sport. The more high profile, the more well known fights we get out there, the better.
A lot of people were debating whether this fight does sell out at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I see 60,000 attendance. Do you believe it's a fight that does sell it out?
I think because of their fathers and because of how long it's been marinating for, possibly. I think it's tough. I think it's tough to do that. I still think if you walk down the street, if AJ and Fury walk down the street, everybody knows who they are. I think if Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. walk down the street, I think they have decent recognition, like a lot more than a lot of other boxers, but probably not in that league. I think it's tough, yeah. Myself, I think it's tough, but they'll promote it so well, won't they? And there's been so much beef beforehand. Could do it.
And then just my last talking point for today, we saw the press conference last night to officially launch the rematch between Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. I've got to get your thoughts on this main event as everyone in boxing had no clue how to call the first fight, and we're in that exact same predicament now, even after watching 12 rounds between them. How do you see this rematch unfolding between the two best light heavyweights on the planet?
Yeah, look, I think when you have two very, very elite boxers as you do there, the fight's going to be close, right? It's not, it's a level of elite boxing where tiny things matter. And also the way that judging occurs, I think who the judges are has a huge impact on the fight as to what they like. I think we'll see a similar fight to the first fight. I think both guys incredibly humble and gracious. And, Bivol wasn't crying robbery after the fight or anything like that. I think it'll go the same way personally. I think it'll go the same way as the first fight.
But you believe it'll be do you think it'll be an Artur Beterbiev win again?
Yeah, I do.
Fair enough. And then just on the undercard, Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker, two guys that Joe Joyce has beaten in his career.
Joe Joyce Derby.
Yeah, exactly. The Joe Joyce derby. How do you see that fight unfolding?
Oh, I mean, What a fight. I mean, I love the fight. Joe Parker, I know quite well. I really like him. I think he's got a great trainer in Andy Lee. He's worked on his strength and conditioning heavily. He's a lot bigger. Daniel Dubois, I don't know as well, knows coach Don very well. Terrific guy. I credit him with so much of Daniel's resurgence. I think it's a really difficult fight to call, actually. I think that Dubois' youth and speed and confidence, I think, is key. I think Dubois' confidence is key. I think Parker's going to deliver what he always delivers as Joseph Parker, that level of performance. But I think Dubois will probably edge it because of his level of confidence, because of where he is in his career right now, because he believes he's indestructible and his speed. I think he'll edge it actually. Dubois for me.
Dubois by stoppage, or do you reckon that he'll navigate his way to go points for a
Or
rare
by late stoppage.
late stoppage? Well,
That's,
Adam, got anything else?
Josh, yeah. Can I speak about Johnny Fisher?
Oh yeah, cool. Oh yeah, we need to get Johnny Fisher in there.
Yeah, I want to speak about Johnny.
Yes, absolutely. We saw the big fight in Saudi a couple of weeks back. A lot of controversy has arisen from that. I know my colleague Eamon Khan spoke to Mark Tibbs and my colleague Danny Flexen spoke to Sam Jones about it all. Um, how do you reflect on it now, nearly a month on?
Yeah, look, I think that I scored the fight ringside. I was sat with Sam Jones and I scored the fight ringside. And I gave Johnny the first 4 rounds, the sixth round, and the 10th round. And obviously, Johnny got knocked down the fifth round. I thought it was incredible. He showed such heart and such balls to get off the floor. I think, he'd been hit on the back of the head a lot. He'd been hit on the ear. He had a small hematoma on his ear and his balance was off. So to be able to continue in those circumstances was incredible. I think Dave Allen put in a great performance, but I think that's how I scored the fight, 95-94 for Johnny. So I got onto the side of the ring. I said to Mark, what do you think? Mark said he's won it by a round. I looked at Eddie Hearn and he was looking at me, kind of looking like draw. I thought it's going to be tight. They announced the win and that's that. And then afterwards, I didn't find it hard to understand that someone else could score the fight differently. Fair enough, someone could. Good friends of mine scored it 95-94 for Dave. But I found it hard to understand the level of hysteria and outrage about like kind of the robbery of Riyadh that occurred. I think Dave Allen and his team actually were like, no, it's not a robbery, it's just a close fight. And they didn't cry robbery. I think they thought he'd won it. But, it's like anything that happens in sport where people can look at things differently. I don't know why people think it's like, shouting fix or hometown fights. Johnny Fisher's a matchroom fighter. And that happened on a Queensbury show. The judges were from Germany, Poland, and Britain. People were sat ringside, and some would have scored it for Dave, and some would have scored it for Johnny. But the people that mattered, that's what you've got to do to win the boxing match. I don't understand the concept of robbery in that. I do understand how someone could score it for Dave, though.
We've seen a lot unfold from it, and I think one thing that's gone a bit viral, I guess you could say in particular, was a bit of back and forth between Gareth A. Davies and Big John. Big John was very, actually say, frustrated by some of the comments and language used on Talksport to describe the fight. Do you kind of feel the same way as Big John in a sense?
I think that the media's job is there to sell things and make headlines. It's not a very interesting headline, is it, to say it was a close fight and maybe Johnny won and maybe Dave won? That's not good clickbait, is it? No one's going to fall for that. So, I'm sympathetic to Gareth A. Davis and Spencer, A, for having their own views, and B, it's their job to sensationalize, isn't it? And that's the industry we're in. They want to sensationalize. So I understand it from the perspective of the media to sensationalize. I think they're wrong, but at the end of the day, they're just opinions, aren't they? Everyone's opinion on Twitter. There's only three opinions that count. That's the people ringside.
And just looking forward for Johnny, obviously, a hell of a lot of talk from boxing fans in general about what do you do for him next. As his management, while it's still very early days, do you have a rough idea of where you want to take Johnny next?
I think Johnny has to rematch Dave Allen. I think he has to. Whether it happens next or not is another question. But I think Johnny has to rematch Dave Allen. I think he learned a hell of a lot in that fight. It was a brilliant learning fight for him. He showed the whole world on the biggest stage possible, but he's got a heart and balls. He now knows what he's got to work on, and he's got to show people definitively that he is a different level to Dave Allen. And the only way he can do that is by having that fight in the UK.
If it isn't Dave Allen next, what type of opponent do you look for Johnny Fisher? Do you look for someone that will build the confidence or someone that will give him
I
the
don't. I
edge?
personally, I don't see a point in rolling out someone that of the level that Johnny's beaten in 1 or 2 rounds. I don't think we need to do that. Johnny's coming off a victory. He's
Mm,
not coming off a loss. We
yeah.
don't need to do that. It was a very, very tough win, but we don't need to do that. He's confident. I think he should be fighting someone like Dave next, and then go up the levels. He's learning on the job, as we always say. But yeah, Dave Allen's the right fight for him next.
Well, Adam, we've got there in the end. Slight howler for me. I'll apologise on my behalf for that.
Not at all, Josh. Not at all.
But thank you as always for your time, and I'm sure I'll
Pleasure.
probably catch you around at a fight week soon.
Cheers, Josh.